There's a lot of questions right now surrounding the 2025 Georgia Bulldogs, but if there's one thing we all know, it's that this team is very, very young. In fact, it's one of the youngest Georgia teams we've probably seen in a long, long time, and we know this because Kirby Smart told us that during SEC Media Days. He had a lot to say, but he made sure to remind everyone how young this team is, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Kirby said 54% of our players are coming into their first or second year. That's what he had to say at SEC Media Days. Now, there's a lot that goes into that, right? There's players who are transferring out. There's players who are leaving for the draft. So they're replacing a lot of snaps, and he loves to say that too. We're replacing snaps here, here, and here. A lot of really good players too, which means a lot of these guys are going to have to step up. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure how many of these freshmen in particular are going to be starting. I think there's a lot of second-year guys who are going to make their mark this season. But with Kirby, he talked a lot about youthful exuberance with these young guys. He wants to see them come into fall camp and get after it. And as we know, it's not easy. Fall camp is where, the coaches, they push their guys, right? The strong survive and the strong thrive during fall camp, and that's where the leaders emerge, and that's where the best players on the team and on the roster, they come ready for fall camp, because that's where you get your butt kicked, right? The coaches push their players to the extreme, right? It's right before the season. They want to make sure these guys are ready. So fall camp is brutal, and the players know that. So right now is the time when they need to start getting into shape, because you win over the staff during fall camp and in those practices. If you want to see the field, especially if you're a young player, you come in ready to grind and work during fall camp. But a lot about the youthful exuberance. That's what he had to say, during SEC Media Days. Here's another big-time quote from Kirby Smart. Again, you can read all of this for free over on dawgpost.com. We're not just fans talking on YouTube, okay? We covered the team. If you're a new viewer, just got onto this channel a few months ago, dawgpost.com. We've been covering Georgia for 20 plus years, okay? And this is a year where I do think we have a lot of question marks because of all the new faces and how young this team is. But here's what Kirby had to say in front of us during SEC Media Days. He said, again, 54% of our players are coming into their first or second year. What do you get with that? You get youthful exuberance. And then he talks about what they did in practice. He said, quote, "We've had practices that have been spirited. We had great spring practice where we talked about the words fire, passion, and energy." I think the biggest thing that separates college football teams today is complacency among players versus fire, passion, and energy among the players. So we've tried to highlight those traits as much as possible with our players. Our players need to bring juice and energy each and every day. If they don't, they'll be confronted by the players that do. And if the players continue to do that, we will have a successful season and successful football team. Now, a lot of this is coach speak, right? Go out there, work hard, practice hard, and whoever brings the most energy and, practices the best will see the field. He's not wrong, because that's how they do it. This is, I think, year 9 for Kirby Smart. And he says every single year, you earn it at practice. Now, the upperclassmen do have a leg up, and a lot of people think that he treats the upperclassmen better. It's mainly because they know the standard, they know how to practice, they know how to work and compete and earn the job that they have. And occasionally you will have a freshman come along and make some plays, and we've seen that in the secondary. Malachi Stark started as a freshman. KJ Bolden played a lot last year, and you still need those guys to continue stepping up. But the young players who have already played and have seen the field and made an impact, those are the guys he wants to turn into starters and push the other guys, because it is hard to maintain the standard that a place like Georgia has when you do have so many young guys, right? And it's hard to ask one of the first or second year guys to lead that group in practice. But it happens, right? He loves the fact that Chris Cole and Justin Williams, those guys are alphas, and they bring as much fire, passion, and energy as anyone on the roster. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to start day one, because they've got 2 extremely talented linebackers, Raylan Wilson and C.J. Allen, in front of them. But those guys are going to see the field because of the way they practice. They're extremely talented, too. Those guys are freaks. Those are alphas. You can read more about them over on Dawg Post. But Kirby Smart, he went back over and over to how young they are. And in an era of college football where teams seem to get older and older as programs sign less out of high school and more out of the transfer portal, and you've got guys who are staying until they're 23, 24 years old, teams do feel older if you look at the age of, the entire roster. And then you've got Georgia here who has 50%, 54% of their roster entering their first or second year. So that's a lot of young talent, but it's a lot of hungry talent. And, he said, he addressed the trenches. He said, quote, "We're going to be really young, especially on the offensive and defensive lines." Now, that's a statement that Georgia fans do not want to hear. But let's talk about that for a second. We'll start with the offensive line. The presumed starters are not necessarily new guys. Monroe Freeling has played a lot of football now. Micah Morris is entering his 5th year. He was in that 21 class. Drew Bobo, I think this is his 4th year. He was in the 22 class, I believe. The right guard, the right guard spot is up for grabs. That could go to a second-year Daniel Calhoun or another second-year offensive lineman that they sign. But then at right tackle, Ernest Green's been around for a while. So I'm assuming that's probably the starting 5. So you don't have a ton of inexperience there. You've actually got more experience than I think Georgia fans realize. But after that, you've got a lot of youth. You've got a lot of guys who were on the bench last year, maybe for 2 years, and they're on that second depth chart that we don't exactly know yet because it's going to be up for grabs. It's fall camp. That's where guys earn the backup job and a possible starting job if someone goes down. And if someone goes down, which happens, it was a banged up group last year. That was one of the many reasons the offensive linemen took a step backwards, a little bit of a disappointment, because they were, patching guys all over the place. Guys were hurt and they had kind of mix and match, so it wasn't super cohesive. But if one of those experienced guys who were starting goes down, then you're talking about more youth who need to step up and play. And I've said for a while, all across the roster, but especially in the trenches, which, and Kirby Smart said, yeah, Matt DeBerry, dog post. He's right. He didn't say those specific words, but he said it with his comments. Yeah, we are young in the trenches, like they've been talking about on dog post. So fortunately, they do have a lot of young, talented, hungry guys who Stacy Searle signed a couple years ago who could step up. And even Juan Gaston Jr., a guy that I raved about and said who was criminally underranked and should be ranked higher. I think he got his 5th star by one of the outlets at the very end. I'm sitting here thinking, I told you so. I told everyone that. But he's a guy who could push for one of those starting roles as a freshman. Not easy to do, but they are young there. And on the defensive line, you've got your 3 kind of experienced guys, Kristen Miller, Jordan Hall, Xavier McLeod. But after that, again, a lot of young, hungry, talented guys, especially in their second year. And I've talked about that in another video. Nazir Johnson, Jordan Thomas, Joseph Jonah Ajanye, Nnamdi Ogboko, Justin Green. Those guys have, been the program a little bit now. This will be their second fall camp. They know what the standard is. They know what they have to do, and they know what to expect at this point in the season as they enter their season. So we'll see how many of those guys continue to step up and take a step forward in their progression. If they want to play, now's the time where they need to win over the staff, and you do that in fall camp. So again, a lot of young, hungry, talented guys, especially on an outside linebacker too. You can talk there. They're pretty deep at wide receiver. They've got some veterans, experienced guys, but there's a lot of hungry, talented wide receivers there too. At running back, they've got more depth than people realize. But at the end of the day, Kirby loves to talk about how many fresh faces. A lot of them are young, but a lot of them are experienced, but they're still new. They still have to adapt to the way Georgia does things, the way they practice, the culture of fire, energy, and passion. You can't just go practice and be quiet all the time, right? You still have to, he wants guys to, push others and ask questions and bring energy. That's what he wants, because he doesn't want to be the only guy bringing energy. He still probably brings the most energy at practice. You can hear him down the street on the microphone, but he wants to see that energy and guys bouncing around and guys having fun, but also being serious and learning. He wants guys getting better every single day. And it's tough to hold that standard when a lot of these guys are really young and brand new and going through their first or second fall camp. So we'll see how things go. I can already imagine right now the first few days of fall practice, He's not going to be super happy. He's going to want guys to be, better condition, better this, better that. So he's not going to be real thrilled, but it's about growing up. If Georgia wants to win a national championship, a lot of these young players, they need to grow up, and they need to grow up as a team throughout the season. They've got to get better and better. If they do so, it could be a special season. Thanks for watching. Again, you can read more about this and other quotes from Kirby, more insider scoop from other people we're hearing around the program. The football season is almost here, so make sure you are on dawgpost.com learning more and becoming a smarter Georgia fan. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video.